The Persian Empire, the rise and fall of one of the greatest empire. Imagine a world with one empire that stretched from the Mediterranean to the Himalayas, building a huge web of roads, cities, and cultures. How did the Persian Empire, which was one of the best civilizations ever, become so powerful and bring together such a wide range of people? And what finally caused it to fall so dramatically to Alexander the Great? The Persian Empire was one of the biggest and most important powers in ancient history. It is famous for its huge size, impressive architecture, wide range of cultures, and strong military. From the 6th century BCE to the 4th century BCE, it was a sign of power, diplomacy, and new ideas in the old world. This video goes into detail about the rise and fall of the Persian Empire, focusing on the great works, kings, and events that have left their mark on history. A history of the rise of the Persian Empire. The Achaemenid dynasty 550 BC 330 BCE. The roots of the Persian Empire can be found in a small group of nomadic groups living on the Afghan plateau. The Persians and Medes were two of these groups that lived in the area we now call Iran. At first, the Medes ruled this area, but it was Cyrus the Great's Persians who changed history and built one of the most successful empires in history. Cyrus the Great started the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus I was born around 600 BCE and was often called Cyrus the Great. By 550 BCE, he had removed the Median king Astyages, which brought the Persian and Median people together. This was the start of the Achaemenid dynasty, which was named after Cyrus's grandfather Achaemens. Cyrus became king quickly and in a smart way. He used a mix of diplomacy and smart strategies in his military operations. The conquest of Babylon in 539 BCE was one of his most important accomplishments. It didn't take much fighting for Cyrus to take the city and make himself king of the Babylonian Empire, which included parts of modern-day Israel, Syria, and Mideast. Cyrus was a leader who was ahead of his time because he stressed respect and understanding for the religions and cultures of the people he conquered. This is very clear in the Cyrus Cylinder, which described his policies of religious tolerance and allowed the Jewish refugees to return to Jerusalem to rebuild their temple. Cyrus wanted his people to be able to keep their own traditions, languages, and religions as part of his kingdom. This helped keep the peace and loyalty of the people who lived in his huge lands. Cambyses II and the growth of Egypt. His son Cambyses II took over after Cyrus and ruled from 530 BCE to 522 BCE. Cambyses carried on his father's policies of going into new areas and set his eyes on Egypt, which was one of the most powerful and wealthy places in ancient times. His war in 525 BCE went well, and he took over Egypt, becoming the first Persian king to be called Pharaoh. In spite of this, Cambyses' rule was not without problems. There was a lot of unrest and disagreement during his rule. After his strange death in 522 BCE, the Persian Empire went into a civil war that led to the rise of Darius I, who was another important figure in the empire's history. Darius I, the king who runs things. People remember Darius I, who ruled from 522 BCE to 486 BCE, and was also called Darius the Great, as one of the best Persian kings because of the changes he made and how well he ran the government. As soon as Darius took the throne, there were several rebellions, but he quickly consolidated his power. His most important accomplishments were to government, building up the military, and changing the law. Darius split the kingdom into provinces called satrapies. Each satrap was in charge of a province, and made sure that local leaders had power, while still being loyal to the Persian king. The kingdom, which grew from the Indus River in the east to Egypt in the west, and from the Caspian Sea in the north to the Arabian Peninsula in the south, was well run with this system in place. Building the royal road, which made it easier for people to trade and talk to each other across the kingdom, was one of Darius's most impressive feats. It went from Susa in Persia to Sardis in what is now Turkey, and was over 1,600 miles long. The road made it possible for couriers to cover the whole length in just a few days, which made imperial government much more efficient. People also say that Darius made the daric, a standard gold coin that helped the empire's economy work together and made Persia one of the wealthiest places in ancient times. But there was trouble during Darius' rule. He started a series of wars with the city-states of Greece, which were called the Greco-Persian Wars. In 490 BCE, the Greeks beat his army at the famous Battle of Marathon. This event led to more fighting between Persia and Greece in the future. The end of the Persian Empire. The foundations for a stable empire were made by Darius the Great. However, the Persian Empire began to fall apart during the reigns of his successors. The empire was still a strong one under Darius's son, Xerxes I, but over time, internal problems and threats from other countries caused it to fall. The invasion of Greece by Xerxes I and the fall of Persian power. Xerxes I was king from 486 BCE to 465 BCE. He is best known for his part in the second part of the Greco-Persian Wars. In 480 BCE, Xerxes invaded Greece to get back at the people who beat his father at Marathon. While his huge army was able to set fire to Athens, the Persian navy lost badly at the Battle of Salamis. After this loss and another one at the Battle of Plataea in 479 BCE, Persia's plans to take over Greece were pretty much over. The loss of Xerxes was the start of the Persian Empire's slow fall. During his rule, there was more and more corruption at the court, high taxes, and protests in Egypt and Babylonia. After he was killed in 465 BCE, the empire was led by a string of weak and ineffective leaders, problems that later Achaemenid rulers had to deal with. After Xerxes, rulers like Artaxerxes I and Darius I had to deal with a lot of problems. There was fighting and palace intrigues inside the kingdom, and threats from outside kept getting worse. Persia was still a very big kingdom, but its central government became less strong, and the satrapy system, which used to work well, started to fall apart because of bad management and corruption. Persia's control over its lands continued to weaken under the rule of Artaxerxes VI 404 BCE 358 BCE, especially in Asia Minor. Under Philip II, the Macedonian kingdom was becoming more powerful and soon became a major threat to the kingdom. The rise of Alexander the Great and the fall of Persia. Alexander the Great, the young king of Macedonia, started a war in 336 BCE that would end with the fall of the Persian Empire. In 334 BCE, he started to take over when he crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor and beat the Persians badly at the Battle of Granicus. Alexander won a big battle in 333 BCE called the Battle of Issus, where he wiped out the Persian army led by Darius II, the last Achaemenid king. Darius II tried to talk things out with Alexander, but Alexander refused and kept conquering. It was the last blow that was dealt in 331 BCE at the Battle of Gaugamela, which is also called the Battle of Arbela. Even though Alexander's forces were far outnumbered, Darius II's forces were wiped out by his brilliant strategy. The Achaemenid dynasty and the Persian Empire came to an end when Darius ran away, but his own soldiers turned him and killed him. What the Persian Empire left behind. Even though Alexander the Great beat the Persian Empire, its effects were felt around the world for hundreds of years. The kingdom changed the way people ruled, lived, and traded for a long time in the ancient world. Persian building, like the huge city of Persepolis, showed off the empire's wealth and artistic skills. Persian innovations in building roads, running the government, and making money set a standard for powers that came after, like the Roman and Byzantine. One of the most interesting things about the Persian Empire is how much it values tolerance and cultural variety across its huge landmass. The empire was the first to be able to bring together different groups of people, languages, and religions into a single government body. It also created the idea of multicultural empires. Also, the Persian religion Zoroastrianism had an impact on the growth of later monotheistic faiths like Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. According to Zoroastrianism, there are two sides to everything, good and bad. This idea had a big effect on religious thought in the ancient and medieval times. During the Achaemenid dynasty, the Persian Empire was one of the strongest and most important in history. Its rise under visionary leaders like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, its growth of territory, and its new cultural ideas left a mark on the ancient world that will never be erased. But strife within the country, threats from other countries, and Alexander the Great's military genius finally brought it down. Even after it ended, the Persian Empire left a mark on history that would last for hundreds of years. The story of the Persian Empire shows how hard it is to build an empire and how important it is to find the right mix between strength, diplomacy, and government when running such a large and varied area. The story of its rise and fall shows how strong and fragile human societies can be. Want more fascinating history like this? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. Stay tuned for more epic stories from the past.